Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Now, we are going to be wrapping up the Bard Guide today, and I just wanted to offer some final thoughts, some ideas, some general tactics, things like that, things you're going to be doing with this particular build. It's kind of been discussed as we've gone along here what exactly it is you'll be looking at doing, but I'm also going to dip into something real quick that normally I try to avoid, and that's looking at archetypes. Archetypes, there are plenty for all of the classes that you can play as. There are many archetypes, and they really do shift around how the class kind of functions because they remove class abilities and add in other things. And the reason why I avoid them is because, well, maybe not everybody is going to have access to archetypes. Maybe not everybody is allowed to play archetypes. Maybe at the play the DM just wants to have base core rulebook stuff only, or maybe just the picking out some things like the classes from the other books, but not allowing archetypes in there just to make it easier for them to keep track of what exactly the classes are capable of doing. That and throwing in archetypes can do a lot to really shift it would add in a lot of work for me is what it boils down to, and I like working with just the core stuff to begin with. um, Work my way through the classes and then maybe play around with some of the different archetypes, see how that affects different builds and the like. So yeah, that's my reasoning there. Try to save myself a bit of trouble, and also there's plenty for me to do anyways with just the baseline stuff and some of the extra feats from other books. Uh, that and well, if you're watching this guide, I assume you have access to the internet, so you can look up a lot of this other information. But who knows? Maybe not everything is quite so readily available somehow. Try to help with that, but hence these guides. So the why am I dipping into a class archetype this time around? Well, it's because we're talking about making an archery bard, and there's an archetype specifically for that. In fact, there's probably archetypes for a lot of the different classes that I've already talked about that fill particular roles. But for this, the archetype is Arrowsong Minstrel. Now, this does a number of things for the class, but it really, really, really makes them much better at archery. Like, hugely, massively. And it doesn't shift around too much of what you're already going to be trying to do. So let's just go ahead and pick our way through this real quick. To start off with, you will lose your longsword, rapier, and whip proficiencies, but you will gain the longbow proficiency, so that will save you the expenditure of a feat. If you're an elf, that doesn't really matter because you're already going to be proficient with the longbow, but that's a trade off there, and that's an okay trade off. That's a fine trade off considering we're going to be specializing in range combat. So, you just need to worry about being able to keep yourself out of the fight. But, with access to things like fly and other spells to help with your maneuverability and the different bardic performances you have access to, that can still be arranged. However, though, you will be casting one fewer spell per spell level than normal, so lose out on first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth level spells, one from each of those. So that does reduce your spell casting, but that's not what we were primarily doing anyways. Spell casting was just a little bit of extra flavoring, extra support, extra abilities, and you still have that extra ability and have some other means of enhancing your spell casting further. You can still use wands, scrolls, rods, rings that help you boost your spell casting. Those are still options available to you to help compensate for this. So it stings, but it's not that bad of a sting. You will also gain access to new spells, and there's a list of them, but the most important is Gravity Bow. This is a big one, because this improves your arrow damage, say you're using the longbow, from 1d8 to 2d6 for 1 minute per level, and you get this spell early on. This is massively good. You definitely want this, if not as a daily casting. get it as a wand or whatever you can do to have this on you and ready to go at all times. Get it. It massively improves your damage output. You are boosting your average damage quite a bit, because 1d8 you're looking at 4 to 5 damage per hit, not factoring in anything like strength or deadly aim or any other feats or sources. And even then, that will still be adding in static bonuses to help improve the averages anyways. So from 4 to 5, and then you go to 2d6, well, your minimum is 2, and then your maximum is 12. So you're going to be floating around the 6 to 7 range there typically for your damage. It's only a couple of points, but that couple of points makes a big difference, especially when you're firing, 4 arrows in a round, 5 arrows in a round, using many shot, rapid shot, and gaining multiple attacks in the process. That stacks up really damn fast. So massively helpful having Gravity Bow. Then at second level, you gain the Precise Shot feat for free. So this frees up another feat for you to go down through other archery feats and just build up that proficiency even further. Also, targets affected by your bardic performance do not provide a soft cover bonus to your ranged targets. You'll lose versatile performance and well-versed, so that does change up some of your skill selections, which is unfortunate. That's definitely going to be a trade-off there, and you'll have to be a bit more careful picking out which skills you want to build up earlier on. But, if your focus is to be more participatory in combat, then that's fine. I do think that this is an unfortunate loss. This is probably one that hurts the most out of everything, but, it's okay. It's not bad. And then after that, for 6th level, you gain Spell Strike, which is a Magus class feature to cast a single range or target range touch attack through your ranged weapon attack. So instead of having to be in melee and cast a touch spell through your weapon when you connect with the target, you just have to fire at them with a ranged attack and you'll do the same thing. You won't have the melee option available to you, but you can do this with Spell Strike. And as you advance in level, this will actually end up improving to where you can hit multiple targets. You have to shoot at each of those targets, but you can, instead of doing one target, if you're using Searing Ray and you can affect up to 3 targets over those 3 attacks, you can fire your spell at each of those targets if you hit them and deal that extra damage or effect. So definitely another thing that helps increase your damage output, and you'll be focusing more on offensive spells if you have access to them, which, you would shift your focus over to more offensive spells in that case. So that's the Arrowsong Minstrel. It's worth mentioning here just because it does really boost the ranged attack damage massively. And while it does impact some of your different skill selections, versatile performance, and well-versed, that's definitely a massive hit to your social abilities. But you still have you're still going to have a good charisma score, and you still get a decent number of skill points that if you invest wisely and carefully and, make some use of different buffing spells when you're able to, you can still come out ahead in a lot of social situations, but you won't be as well-rounded. You're not going to be as solid of a face character. But for those situations where your party definitely needs or wants, or you want to play a more range-focused character, you can let somebody else take a stronger lead, or at least split the duties in terms of which skills you want to focus on. So that's the Arrowsong Minstrel. Definitely worth playing around with. Definitely a very fun build option in the Pathfinder game. But, it's something that I am not going to dabble with too much, these archetypes. So do with that what you will. Hopefully it's fun. But for our build overall, we've got a character that has, through versatile performance and well-versed, has a broad array of skills that they can substitute out using their performance skills, and with different magic items, high charisma, and the fact that we're probably cranking up these performances to high maximized levels means there's a wide variety of skills here that the bard can use to be useful in a lot of different situations. I mean, really, you can improve your diplomacy, your bluff, your intimidation. What exactly you need is just going to be dependent on what playstyle you have. But my recommendation is definitely focus more on singing or oratory skills, or even comedy, because this way you can speak aloud and do your bardic performances verbally, or at least most of the verbal performances, and be able to assist your allies without having to put down your bow and arrow. You can still fire and work in combat and maintain bardic performances, and those skills also affect things like your diplomacy skill, your bluff skill, these social skills that you'll be using with quite a bit of regularity, given that you're also the party face, hence the sharp-tongued leader. And then the fact that we also are using a bow means we're going to be keeping out of combat, so we're not damaging that pretty face too often. And then your spellcasting will also help round out your abilities, your ability to buff your allies, help heal afterwards using various wands or scrolls, or even some of your bardic performances if you can save some of that and have it left over after the combat. So, and if you're very fortunate and you're able to get the celestial armor, well, you don't have to worry about having the fly spell memorized quite as often, and you can take to the air in a fight, gain a superior position, a good vantage point to see most, if not all, of your targets, and just rain pointy, dangerous death down upon them with your ranged attacks. So, another thing I should mention, there was one item I didn't put on the magic items list, and it's a particular bowstring. Oh goodness, I'm spacing on the name for it right now, but what this bowstring does is when you make a ranged attack, you can use that attack as a way of maintaining your bardic performances. So it's a very handy magic item to have, and since if you have performed stringed instruments, you'll be able to make use of that pretty reliably, pretty easily, and regularly. So I definitely recommend picking it up, and I'm looking it up right now as we're speaking just because, well, I had it in my head and then I lost it because, of course I did. Why wouldn't I? Ah, goodness. Let's see here. Tuned bowstring, that's what it was. Can't believe I forgot that. It's the tuned bowstring, and it's awesome to have. Also, as far as weapon enchantments or any other gear enchantments that you may want to have, well, having the adaptive quality put on your bow means that anytime you boost your strength, whether it's through different buffs or if you get a belt of physical might, something that enhances your strength score, well, the adaptive bow will automatically enhance to that point. So that way you can up your damage output pretty reliably and pretty safely there. Definitely something to look into having there. And as far as other enchantments, it kind of depends on what you're going up against. Holy is always a good option because it's pretty safe bet that you're going to be going up against evil creatures, undead, demons, devils, all different sorts of nasty creatures out there with the evil descriptor attached to them. So the holy enchantment is good. The speed enchantment is also just always a solid enchantment no matter what build you're using. But getting an extra attack will, of course, increase your damage output. So definitely having that slapped down on your bow, very important as well. Other things that you might consider, I've always been a fan of arrows of teleportation, something that was in the old Icewind Dale game, which I recommend picking up if you ever have the opportunity to do so. But you essentially fired the arrow once it hit the spot you were aiming at, or, once the arrow lands, the teleportation activates and you go to that particular point. So can be a way of saving yourself. I'm not advocating it as a way of getting into combat, but if you get into trouble and you know exactly where you want to retreat to, well, just turn and fire that arrow and bam, you teleport away. Nice, safe, easy, not having to worry about keeping concentration or focusing on where it is exactly you need to go to avoid horrible things happening to you. But something like that would be fun. There's no listing for it in the games itself, but easy enough to implement, I think, that I feel safe enough recommending it here. Other magic items really just kind of depends. I mean, there's all kinds of magical musical instruments out there that are useful. Lyre of building, horn of blasting. Horns of blasting have always been fun. So yeah, definitely lots of different options out there. But you're going to be buffing and supporting your allies, and then participating in a fight by firing as many arrows as you can at the various targets that may be coming your way. And by adding in a significant amount of damage, you're pulling double duty. You may not be as effective an archer as, say, a dedicated ranger, but you're definitely not going to be a slouch in any regard. And the fact, again, that you're boosting your allies is only going to be that much more helpful. And you definitely have better support spells than the ranger does. So, and also your bardic performances, which are just going to blow everything out of the water. That and the fact that you can add in a significant bonus to all of your knowledge skills means rarely will you not know what it is you're up against. So you can identify the various weaknesses of whatever monsters you're up against, have all this knowledge of lore and legends ready at your fingertips. So you have a well-rounded, very skilled character who's very competent in range combat, has some good magical spell casting, as well as a nice suite of bardic performances that help also provide more support to your allies. So this is definitely a very good, very fun build, and definitely takes the bard from being that fifth wheel character for that, well, the fifth person that showed up, and all the other spots were taken. You already had your tank, your mage, your sneak thief to disable the traps. You had their cleric with the healing. Why not play the bard? Well, this takes them out of that and definitely makes them a force to be reckoned with, both on the battlefield and in all the social situations, all the different skill monkey kind of things that would crop up. So definitely the bard is no slouch. And if you take the Arrowsong Minstrel, you lose some of your skill monkey aspects and a little bit of your spell casting, but it definitely makes you a way better archer. But those are just my thoughts. This is what I've been able to research and play around with and kind of put together. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below there. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there something else that you might add into the mix here? Let me know. I'm more than happy to participate in any sort of discussion with you guys. And for that matter, considering discussing things, now that we've wrapped up the bard, we need a new class to cover here. Now, if we don't have a vote by next Saturday, I've got a couple ideas on what I can do vis-a-vis the player's guide to kind of keep things rolling and moving along, but go down into the comments below, cast your votes, let me know what class you would like me to cover next here. Please do so. Be more than happy to take those suggestions, total the votes, and get rolling forward on another class. But if this has not been your first stop and you want to see more, YouTube has a couple of videos popping up over this way. The almighty algorithm has determined that you may enjoy one of these, whereas the other is one that is just the most recent thing I've put out here on the channel. And also, if you've watched a couple of videos by now, then hell, why not consider going down there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and join us and become a regular here at the Gamers Den. Certainly we'd be happy to have you. I know I would be. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and call it here. I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.